comic books, graphic novels, and show pictures of beautiful women all the time. Let's say the artist of a certain comic draws a woman in a hypersexual way, instead of, that is to say, a beautiful way. Where's the line? How do you distinguish between the two? Now, here's where things get a little bit muddy, not because they are logically muddy, but because our society is so mixed up that we have no significant standard for any of that. But you go back 50 years, 75 years, yeah, there was a norm. There was a cultural norm, which everyone would say, or at the very least 99% of your culture would say, yeah, that's crossing the line. No, you've gone too far there. You can't put that down on a page. You just can't. And since our current stagnant, so-called progressive society has tried to obliterate any standard or any norm like that, let's at the very least try to find the general vicinity of this line. The general vicinity is the difference between vice and virtue. If you're presenting something which is stirring up a vice within the audience, and again, it can be different for different people, once again, because we have no standards in our society, if you're stirring up a desire within that person to fulfill something which is technically a virtue, which is to say to reproduce, if you're stirring that up in them in a way that cannot be fulfilled, you're actually engaging in vice. That is to say, let's say you're presenting these pictures of beautiful women over and over again, and it's just making the reader want to express that desire. It's a vice because expressing that desire is a good thing if you do it in the right way, but there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to do that sitting there reading a book. It's like having this hole in your life, this thing that's missing. You desire it not to be missing, but the hole is only filled by a virtuous act. If you try to fill it up with vice, it's never going to be enough. You can throw as much vice at it as you want. It's never going to be enough. And if you're looking at a 2D static picture of a woman, if it's not a real woman, one that you have a connection to, you're not fulfilling that desire. It's not happening. What more, if you can actually fulfill that desire, if you have a woman in your life that you can go and fulfill that desire with, what are you going to do with the book? Well, you're going to put it down. Yeah, I want to go do that, not sit here and read. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to do with an audience. Get them to put your book down. Because will they come back to it? God only knows. And again, where that line should technically be, I know better than to put that in my YouTube video. Because the entire video will just be derailed by the comments of people saying, no, the line should be here, 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 and here. But that gives you a general vicinity. And we can narrow down that general vicinity by then looking at how to portray beauty, which is a correct way to portray beauty. Because here's the thing about beauty. It can work in the exact opposite way of what I just described. Because if you present something that is truly beautiful down on the page, yes, it's only a representation of beauty, but still, not only can it be fulfilled by you continuing to read the book, but it can then inspire the fulfillment of that pursuit of beauty within the rest of your life as well. Now, I realize that beauty can be included in sexuality, but this video is getting long enough as it is. Let's just concentrate on the absolutes for a moment, understanding that there is some overlap here. But the point is, again, if you're portraying something that is stirring up a desire which cannot be met by you continuing to read the book, then you're actually being counterproductive. If you present something, however, that is beautiful, which stirs up the desire within the person to continue reading, to continue living in this world which you are presenting, because it becomes so real to them that they want to spend more time with that beauty, which is the second part of the entire idea of marriage. It is the sharing of a space with someone else that includes sharing it in truth and beauty. You can do that within a story. You can do that within a comic. You can present the beautiful and attract the person to want to keep on reading because they want to spend more time with what is beautiful. And again, the greatest idea that can be presented in that way is one that inspires the person to then, after they are done with that world, go out and seek that beauty in reality itself. Not just the representation of that beauty as it is on the page, but the beauty itself as it exists within your life. That is the exact same thing you can do with heroism. Because heroism is part of what is true, is part of what is good, is part of what is beautiful. That is the greatness of a heroic story. You are drawn to the heroism of this character. You want to continue to read on, to see how they persevere. The beauty of what they do in the virtue of expressing themselves as heroes draws you in and makes you want to spend more time with that beautiful thing. And as you spend more and more time with it, with that character, with that story, then inspires you to actually live out that beautiful, virtuous character within your own self. And this goes back to what I was talking about before. If you're looking at the page and are desiring what is going on there on the page, if you're desiring that woman, if you're desiring to possess that person, even if it's an abstract character, then you're desiring something vicious. You're desiring something that destroys your ability to use right reason. And in short, you're desiring to do something which is supposed to have its virtue within the confines and structure of marriage, which itself has its own particular end, which is the potentiality of the creation of life. If that's not there, you're staring down the barrel of vice. But if, on the other hand, you're inspired to acts of self-giving, if you're inspired to simply be in the presence of what is beautiful without possessing it, which is one of the heights of virtue of what marriage is within the companionship that is offered there, if you are seeking to allow that beauty to exist freely, as long as you can be in its presence, then that's when you're looking up at virtue. And I won't hide the fact that both of those are desires. But one desire is to act in accord with a fantasy, in a way that reality does not exist, because you think, in a prideful manner, that you're exempt from the rules of reality, even if it's just for this moment. But the other is a desire to live in the presence of something that is good. Not to possess it, not to control it, not to dominate it, to let it be, because that's part of how it is beautiful. It doesn't depend on you, and deep down you know that if you try to grab it, squeeze it, possess it, you will destroy it, because part of its nature is to be free. So I suppose, to make a long story short, yes, sexuality does contain within it a beauty and a virtue. But if you're being presented this kind of beauty in a way that you want to dominate it, possess it, use it, you've crossed the line. But if you're presented beauty in a way that stirs up a desire within you to first off simply exist within its presence so that you can receive the self-giving of that beautiful thing, which in turn will inspire you to the virtue of living out the true, the good, the beautiful in your own life, then that is a representation of beauty that should never be ignored.